Howdy, Vine Trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show begins to tell you a little bit about the Texas Wine Lover website and app. It is a definite must-have for anyone wanting to explore the Texas wine industry. Now, they have a website. It's txwinelover.com, but they also have an app that you can actually download to your phone. You can find it on the Apple App Store or on the Google Play Store for Android devices. And it's going to be kind of your one-stop shop for when you go out to visit these great places. So you get to listen to them here on the podcast or watch them on YouTube to learn about these wineries. But when you go to visit, make sure you're checking out that app, because I'm sure you're probably going to want to visit other places in the area as well. And you can do incredible searches. It's the most comprehensive listing of winery information in Texas. And you can look for wineries in your area to go visit multiple places. You can sort those listings by finding out ones that are kid-friendly, maybe some that are pet-friendly. If you want to look for events or things that are going on, if you want to find those that can host RVs, just about any category you can think of, you can actually sort those listings and find wineries around you to go visit. The app is free to use for you and I. So it's a perfect, again, hand-in-hand tool when you're going out to visit wineries. Listen to them on this podcast, watch them on YouTube, and then start making your plans to go visit and use the Texas Wine Lover app when you go. Now, it can also be a great tool. Maybe you're not even looking for a winery. You just happen to be traveling to some place in Texas, and you just might think, I've got a little extra time. I wonder if there are any wineries in the area. You can actually look them up in the Texas Wine Lover app. You can search either by the name of a winery, or it's got a map view. So you can actually pull up a map of the area around you and see locations of wineries near you and go visit them and support the Texas wine industry. So you got to use the Texas Wine Lover app. It goes perfectly with this podcast. So make sure you check it out before you go on your next trip among the vines. Again, it's www.txwinelover.com, or look up the Texas Wine Lover app on your favorite phone app store and make sure you get that downloaded and use it frequently. You will benefit from it and ask for Texas wines. Let's see the Texas wine industry prosper and go visit some of these fun places that I'm bringing to you on the show. Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow Vine Tripper. Welcome to episode 61 for the Texas Under Vine podcast. So for today's episode, I ventured a little deeper down the Wine Road 290, right in the heart of Texas wine country, the Hill Country region. I continued my journey just off the main road of the Wine Road 290 in High, Texas, to a place called Westcave Cellars Brewery. Although this isn't the first physical location for this particular wine destination, which we'll tell you more about later, they actually settled in on this place not too long ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, and settled in here into the heart of the wine tourism area for Texas. This winery is owned by Allan and Margaret Fetty. Allan actually started his career in the technology industry and found himself traveling a lot of time to California, right up near Napa Valley, and developed a love for wines as he would travel through there, fell in love with many different varietals of wine while he was there in Napa Valley. And in the mid 90s, he planted a small kind of experimental vineyard in his backyard in his home in Dripping Springs, Texas. And along with taking some extension classes at UC Davis while he was on some of his trips, he started to get this bigger dream for planting a much larger vineyard. And in 1999, they realized that dream by planting their first larger vineyard, starting with Cabernet Sauvignon. And this was on a larger 60-acre plot, just kind of southwest of Austin on an area called Hamilton Pool Road, which was actually right across the street from Westcave Preserve, which is where they drew the moniker for their winery of Westcave Cellars. Their original goal was really just to maintain the vineyard and grow fruit that they sold to other wineries and other locations. And they did that for several years before taking a trip up to Washington State. And after tasting some great Washington State wines there, Allan began to get the bug in him and started thinking, you know what? We could make wine as well. We've got the grapes. Why can't we make great wine here in Texas like they're making up there in Washington State? So in 2010, they did just that. They began producing their own wines from their fruit and started their path as not just a grower now, but a winery as well. And they have actually been 100% true to Texas wine. They actually get all of their grapes from Texas and are very proud to be a grower winemaker in that. Matter of fact, Allan was one of the founding members of the Texas Wine and Grape Growers Association here in Texas. So they really have deep roots here, pun intended, in the Texas wine industry. Now, after several years of producing wine, in late 2019, they decided to change their vision of where they wanted to reach people, and they ended up selling their property there off Hamilton Pool Road, and they moved into a brand new location, about 30 acres or so, right off, again, the Wine Road 290 outside of High. It's just a couple miles north of the Wine Road 290. You'll find the entrance to their property, and they have now a much greater exposure to, again, the wine tourism that you get there through that region of the Texas Hill Country. Now, as of yet, Allan has yet to decide if he wants to plant some vineyards on the property there. They do have a lot of great places, he says, that they could do that there. However, right now they maintain a small little 3-acre vineyard in Wimberley, and they do source fruit from other Texas growers around the state, especially in the High Plains area. So they're still going to be 100% Texas. They just haven't made that step forward yet to plant vineyards on the current property where they call home. And all your non-wine drinking friends can now rejoice when you take them to Westcave Cellars, because it's not just Westcave Cellars, it's Westcave Cellars and Brewery. They actually also brew beer on the site. Very interesting story about that you'll get in the interview. So they do have 4 different styles of beer that they're actually brewing. You can get a flight of those. So all of those people in your party who don't enjoy wine as much as we do also have something that they can enjoy while they're there as well. They also do some really fun events. They have a really big grill outside that they love to utilize for some of these events and do a lot of cooking and food preparation. One of the things that Allan talks about in the interview are the pig roasts that they do. He has a very special pulled pork recipe that he got from his North Carolina roots that I've heard is to die for. So that's something you'll have to keep an eye out for. They also do some really cool pairings with foods. They had one that I thought was really fun. I'd love to check out sometime. That was a breakfast tacos and wine pairing. Now that's what I'm talking about. Let's get this party started early, right? And get this, if you are interested in Westcave Cellars, but it's hard to get to their location, they even have set up some remote tasting opportunities. So if you have like a neighborhood wine club, or maybe your business organization, a homeowners group, some sort of personal group of some kind, and you want to talk to them about bringing a tasting to your group, they will do it. They will set up and bring everything out to you, to your location, and do some tastings of those wines where you're at. And even if you're, say, out of state and you can't even get them there to you, they'll even do some remote Zoom style tastings for you where they can ship you the wine and then they can get online with Zoom and go over some of the tasting notes and things with you as you go through them. So they're really making an effort to not only reach to their customers that come into the tasting group, but to all the customers who might want to experience Westcave Cellars wines and maybe can't get there. So check into that if that's something interesting for you as well. Now, when I stopped in to visit, I was lucky to be able to sit down with the owner and winemaker, Allan Fetty, and we sat in their tasting room, taking in the beautiful scenic area around us. They had these big glass windows all around the front that we were able to see the countryside, the trees and everything, the hills there. And as we took in that great beauty around us, we got to talk a little bit about their history, where they've come from, and the exciting things they're doing at this new location they've been at for the last several years, and kind of what their idea is for the future. So without further ado, let's go to that interview so you can hear directly from Allan. Howdy, Vine Trippers. Welcome to this episode here at Westcave Cellars. And I'm here with Allan Fetty to go over some of the information about this location and to get you excited about coming to visit here. So without any further ado, Allan, tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the wine industry?
Well, first of all, Scott, thank you for coming out this morning and visiting, and welcome to Westcave Cellars. We're glad to have you here this morning, and look forward to the next hour or so talking with you. So that it should be interesting. My wine journey started maybe 35 years ago in the early 90s. And I worked in the technology industry and had the opportunity to travel significantly, especially to California, which landed me going to Napa Valley on a regular basis, almost once a month for a period of 2 or 3 years. So I got to be pretty familiar with Napa Valley, and of course, developed palate for wine. And at that time, Napa Valley was significantly different than today. But started collecting wine and developed interest in, initially Merlot was the most favorite wine I collected, and then moved to Cabernet. But then over the course of 10 years, took journeys into collecting Tempranillo and then Sangiovese or Zinfandel. And, for 6 or 12 month periods would only focus on those particular wines. So learned a lot about the different varietals and where they're grown and what the styles of wine should be. Again, primarily California wines at that time. In the mid 90s, I started an interest in growing grapes. And so planted a small vineyard in my backyard in Dripping Springs. And I had 30 vines and 3 different rootstocks and 3 different varieties. So it was kind of my R&D plot, I called it. And in my travels, I had opportunity to take classes at UC Davis. So if I was out there during the week, I could stay over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, take extension classes, initially in vineyard development and growing grapes, and then later some classes in the winemaking process. The thought at that time was it was just a hobby.
Okay.
By the end of the 90s, 97, 98, we were thinking, let's buy some land and plant a vineyard and put together a business plan, and said, I'm going to grow grapes. And the data was still a little bit young for Texas, but it was not much different than we know today. It's like you really need 20 acres of grapes as a critical size. There's a lot of people still want to do 4, 5, 3 acres or something, and it's just not feasible and cost effective. But the goal was to plant 3 to 5 acres a year for 5 years. And it takes 5 years to get fully mature vines. So after 10 years, you'd have 20 acres of fully mature grapes, and might be able to quit my day job. So that was the thought process. And this was 97, 98. So we bought land, we planted the first vineyard, Cabernet Sauvignon, in 1999. So we're one of the older growers in the Texas Hill Country, and still growing grapes today. That location, we had 65 acres on Hamilton Pool Road.
Okay.
So if you go out Hamilton Pool Road from Austin, you first come across Hamilton Pool Park. But if you go past there, across the Pedernales River, there's another park called Westcave Preserve. And we were right across the road from Westcave Preserve. So that's where we took the name.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense.
Later on, initially we didn't plan on starting a winery.
Yeah.
It was just going to grow grapes and sell grapes to other wineries, which we did for about 10 years. So we got the vineyard established, and every year added a few more. Never got to 20 acres. We got to 12 acres at that location.
Okay.
And of course, life happens. You go through job changes, some career changes. Kids grow up, go to college. So anyway, we never got to 20 acres, but we did get to 12 acres.
Okay.
And we're selling grapes to a number of the popular wineries that we all are familiar with, the older wineries that were
the more established.
still going, were either getting established in the early 2000s or had been there for a while. And then around 2010, our daughter had moved to Seattle, and we visited her in Seattle, and I had been making small batches of wine, and the people we sold grapes to were giving me buckets of grapes. Go try making wine with these. And so I was learning more about the winemaking process. And sure enough, we go to Seattle and started tasting Washington State wines, which this is around 2010. In my opinion, at that time, they were very expensive for the quality of the wine. They're still very expensive, but I think the quality has greatly improved, much like Texas wines have improved. But anyways, like, we can do this. And
The light bulb went
the
off.
light bulb went off. It's like, we were growing grapes. We can make wine this good. Why shouldn't we do that? And basically came back from that trip to Washington State and applied for the TABC permit. And we already had metal buildings at the farm location. We had the grape supplies. So it's just a matter of getting started.
Yeah.
And jumped off the cliff. And
Dove in.
went down that path. We had 9 different varieties of grapes at that location. And then we started sourcing grapes from other locations. You know, my background was in operations management. So second sourcing was a big mentality. So all the grapes we grew, we looked for a second source of those varieties because of freeze and frost and the sourcing issues associated with that.
Unpredictability of the weather in Texas, for sure.
Yeah. So those were things, I looked at, and we opened the doors and, built a facility. We had a beautiful property there with beautiful oak trees and everything. And things went pretty well. We grew pretty fast. And so it wasn't 10 years later, but it was 14 years later, I actually quit my day job. And so I'm one of the few people, so I'm told by the banking community anyway, that this is what I do. I grow grapes, make wine, sell wine, and I don't have a second job. I don't have another source of income. This is it. So we live and die on how the winery does and the reputation, and the quality of the wine. So it's a big deal. It's important. Very few of the other people have that. We don't have any investors, and it's definitely a mom and pop shop. It's me and my wife are the owners, and she runs the tasting room primarily, and I grow grapes and make wine. 100% of the wines are made on site.
Okay.
We'll go down that path. I was one of the founding members of the Texas Wine Growers Organization, which is the 100% Texas organization of 100% of all the wines we make are Texas grapes, and 100% of it is made here on site by me. And we don't bring in juice. We make wine for a number of other people, but we're very committed to the whole philosophy of terroir and location and regionality, and authenticity is like, if it says Texas on the label, it should have Texas wine in the bottle. So we're strong believers in that. I've also been on the board at the Hill Country Wine Trail. So participated in that. I've been on a number of the wine grower, grape growing committees over the years. And right now kind of backing out of all those organizations as an active member, and just being a member.
Yeah.
So we're doing that.
You've done your service. You've done a lot there to help those things grow.
We're tried. Yep. Do the best we can.
Well, let me ask you a question then. So as I come out here and I'm in this beautiful tasting room here on this property, we're not out Hamilton Full Roads. We're now off 290. And so tell me about the move. And do you still have the property there off Hamilton Pool or?
No, we sold that property. It was a concern at the time, maybe less so now, but we were getting more and more surrounded as Austin grew by subdivisions. And we were becoming basically the neighborhood winery. And we were still growing as a winery and wanted to be more in the mainstream of the Texas Hill Country wine trail. So in 2019, we sold the property, and it was right at the end of the year. In 2020, found this property on Branch Road 1320 on the road to Sandy. We're just a half a mile off of Highway 290, so we're right here in the middle. Sandy Road now has like 5 wineries, so we have our own little area here.
It's a little tributary.
And we're in High Texas, in the middle of the winery scene, and we moved here in 2020.
Okay. Right around COVID time.
Well, so we actually moved the winery and the wine, got the tasting room open in March, and then everything got shut down. Which, if we had known that, we may have tried to get right on 290 instead of just being slightly off 290. But with the delays that were put in place at that time, it allowed us to finish out the tasting room and build a new winery facility. So we officially opened in like September of 2020, COVID year. And so we've been going since then. At the original facility, it was fairly small and very quaint. This one, we have a separate building for the tasting room, separate facility. The winery is a separate facility, and then we have a case storage area as well. And there's also an Airbnb on the property. So if people wanted to come and spend time at this location, stay at the Airbnb, there's that opportunity as well. And those are all on the website, pretty well defined.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great little place to come in and kind of make that your home base, where you have the winery on site as well as being able to explore other places around the area. Because I know sometimes finding places to stay in the Wine Road area can be difficult. So having that is a boon. So
Yeah.
I like that. About how much area do you have here now? How many acres is this? And do you have vineyards planted here on site?
We have 30 acres. There are a couple of really good sites to plant vines, and we're still evaluating whether we want to do that. Partly because of the time frame. You plant, it's 3 or 4 years before you get a harvest, and then it's really realistically 7 to 10 years before the vines are mature. And we still farm 3 acres in Wimberley. So we still have our own vineyard where I'm still doing all of the pruning and the spraying. And those grapes are Sangiovese and Cab Franc. And we also source those from 2 other vineyards as well, the same varieties. So we still have our hands in the farming areas, and the vineyards that we source grapes from, all of them we've been with now more than 10 years. Mostly smaller vineyards that I work closely with in Lubbock, in West Texas, in Sonora, Texas.
High Plains area.
Yeah. And Wimberley. We have our own. And we've done some recently in the Pontotoc area. So got some grapes there. We love Hill Country grapes. They definitely have different characteristics than the High Plains. And not necessarily better, but just different. And so we do very often have, for example, a Cabernet from the High Plains and a Cabernet from the Hill Country that we can do side-by-side tastings in the tasting room for people who are interested in seeing the differences between the dirt and the climate and those kinds of characteristics. So
It's interesting because you can have, Cabernet from one winemaker from one location and a Cabernet from a winemaker in a different location. And is the differences terroir? Is it the winemaking style or whatever? But in this case, you have the same winemaker doing the same typically styles, but you really get to taste that terroir different.
yeah, exactly. And same yeast and everything. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I also noticed that in the name of the winery, it's Westcave Cellars and Brewery. So tell me a little bit about the brewery side of things.
Yeah, so we had around 2017, one of our club members came forward and was asking me lots and lots of questions about the vineyard, about irrigation and spraying and how do we do harvest and all of these kind of things. And I'm like, what are you trying to do? And he says, well, I want to grow hops. and he was a home brewer. And he wanted to go to the next level and grow his own hops. I'm like, well, good luck with that in Texas. But he went down that path and planted hops, and I helped him out a little bit with the irrigation strategy and spraying. And he started with like 500, I guess they're called rhizomes, plants, and they grow tall. So he had to put in like telephone poles, 16 feet tall. And so he was like only the third person to grow hops in Texas on his ranch in Candelia. And by 2020, he was up to a full acre of hops. And
So very
producing-
successful.
Yeah, at the time. And so, with the theme of 100% Texas, his goal was to make an estate beer, which there's only 6 or 7 estate breweries in the country. And a similar definition to estate wines, where everything that goes into that bottle of beer is produced on that estate. So he grew hops. He had a spring well. He attempted to grow barley, was not so successful with that. But the barley came from Mason County.
Okay.
So in 2020, he started producing larger quantities, and it's still small beer production, but it's 100% Texas. And I told him, we've kind of gone into a partnership, and I said, I'll get the permit because it's easier for me to get a beer permit, another alcohol permit.
Tagged on to what you
since
already
I
had.
have one,
Yeah.
than for him to start over from scratch. And I bought the equipment. So the brewery is Westcave Cellars Brewery, and then we contract with him basically to brew the beer. And so for 4 or 5 years, we had 100% Texas beer. Unfortunately, during that Snowmageddon, he got froze out, and almost all of the hops plants got set back significantly. And then the following year, we had some rain, and he got a soil-borne mite, similar to like phylloxera, in the wine industry. Well, there's no agricultural support for hops growing in Texas. So I think he may still have a couple dozen hops plants that are still alive, but he basically lost the whole thing. So fortunately or unfortunately, during that 5-year period, his middle son got really interested in brewing beer. And Porter was working for us in the tasting room, and still is, but he has now become the brewmaster. So he's brewing the beer with his father. And again, all of the beer brewing is done on site. And we try to keep 4 different beers on tap. 1 is a blonde, and 1 is an ale, and then we have 2 that we rotate as seasonal beers. Pecan porter, there's a stout on tap right now. We've done barrel aging, whiskey barrel aging. We've done wine barrel fermentations on the beer. So Porter has played around with quite a few different things. Unfortunately, we're no longer have Texas hops. But the beers are still pretty good and pretty consistent. So it's another option for people coming in. If there's 4 people in a party and there's always one that wants to have a beer. So we'll do a flight of 4 beers, or you can get a pint. We can fill growlers for you or any of that kind of stuff. So.
And one of the things that I learned that I didn't know before, I actually was able to participate in judging at the San Antonio wine competition this last year, as well as the inaugural Fort Worth wine competition. And as you're drinking wine after wine, you're not drinking, you're spitting, but tasting wine after wine after wine after wine, hundreds of wines in a day, that beer is a palate cleanser. And so if you've been tasting a lot of wine throughout the day and you want a little palate cleanser, having that beer there is a great way to do that. Plus, you get to taste some great beers.
Yeah. So what's interesting is Patrick, the dad who grew the hops, he drinks wine all the time, and I drink beer all the time. And
the winemaker drinks beer, and the beer maker drinks the wine.
And we have the ongoing joke is it takes a lot of beer to make wine, and so he always says it takes a lot of wine to make beer. But yeah, when he comes here, he won't touch the beer. He'll drink his wine.
Just drink the wine. So. Well, talk a little bit about where you source your fruit and you bring that in. Do you do all the production of the wine here on site? You talked a little bit about your winery here.
Yep. 100%. We have trucks and trailers. If we're getting a larger batch, we'll have it freighted in a air conditioned trailer Lubbock area. Most of the time, I'll haul the grapes myself. All of the processing is done here, crushing, destemming, cold stabilizing. We have about 8,000 gallons of stainless tank capacity. All of our reds get barrel aged, and we're very much in a French style. Most of the varietals are Bordeaux-ish, although we have Rhone, we have Syrah, and of course Viognier we're pretty well known for. So we have some Rhone varieties, and then we do a number of Italian varietals. Most of those are for other tasting rooms. But everything is processed here, barrel aged, almost exclusively French oak. We've experimented with some Hungarian oak. And the Merlot will use a little bit of American oak, maybe one barrel out of 10 or something like that, just to give a little vanilla and almond notes to the Merlot. We tend to do varietals.
Yeah. Straight varietals versus blends.
Yes. Out of 24 wines on our menu, we probably have 3 blends.
Okay.
So the rest, Cabernet, it's Cabernet in a bottle, or Merlot, or Nebbiolo, or whatever. And focus on varietals and ageable wines. Part of my background experience of tasting, collecting wine was go back to the same winery year after year and buy bottles and then let them age. And, after 5 or 6 years, now you've got a vertical that you can, when you have friends over, you can open 3 or 4 bottles from the same vineyard, same winemaker, but different years, where in theory, the only difference is the weather. And see how the different wines are from the same location. And that's kind of the focus and the style that we've gone down of varietal wines, ageable, collect them year after year. We do have a Bordeaux blend, Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, Merlot, and some Petit Verdot. We have a couple other blends that were from the vineyard specific, so all the reds in our original vineyard. We call that Vigneron. And that's pretty much it. We have one fun varietal. It's primarily Montepulciano, but it's a minor blend. It's like 10% Primitivo and some Trebbiano, and we call it Horny Red. It's a light fruity wine. It's the only wine we make that doesn't get barrel aged. The only red wine. And it's light, fruity, and fun.
Okay. Meant to be drunk young.
Yep. And we serve it chilled. So it's a nice wine for those, especially for the newer wine drinkers, or the people who don't like the more tannic red wines that we tend to make.
Well, I love when I get to interview a winemaker as part of the podcast, because I always like to ask the question. So as a winemaker, what are some of your favorite wines to make and to work with?
Well, we probably make more Merlot and Sangiovese than the others. Those are probably 2 of my favorites for daily drinking. We do make Cabernet. The last couple years, I've really gotten into the Cab Franc and Petit Verdot, which leads to a blend, the Bordeaux blends with those Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, Cab Sauv, and the Merlot is always here. So those 2 we bottle as varietals, which a lot of people don't, and we've had really good reviews and good success in the tasting room. There's some education process because a lot of people aren't familiar with Petit Verdot as a varietal, for example. But we've had good luck with those.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Petit Verdot lately, especially in Texas. It seems to be really doing well here in Texas.
I feel like it's doing real well.
Yeah.
Cab Franc is a little finicky and really requires a lot of vineyard
management
integration. You have to be in the vineyard all the time. With the Cab Franc, it's otherwise you're going to end up underripe and really green, and you got to be really patient with it. But we've done real well with the Cab Franc.
What are some of your popular wines with customers? What are the ones that just people keep saying, I got to have more of this, and it's hard to keep on the shelf?
So we've only been doing Sauvignon Blanc for about 3 years, and the last 2 years it's really been fantastic. The quality fruit, and this is High Plains. The quality fruit has been really good, and it's been really nice varietal specific, so people can identify it right away if they've had a California Sauv Blanc.
Right.
That one is doing really well. We've always had a good reputation for our barrel fermented Viognier. So it's a little richer, a little heavier Viognier. Those are the two whites that sell the most. For the more novice or the younger age drinkers, the Horny Red and Sangiovese in general are more medium-bodied wines that really do well here. The more experienced wine drinkers, they go right for the Bordeaux blend, the Cab Sauv, Merlot. Occasionally we'll have a Primitivo, so they'll go after that. So it kind of depends on the age group and the level of experience that the people have.
And for those that don't know, Primitivo is also similar. There's a lot of debate about it, but similar to Zinfandel. Some people say it is Zinfandel. Some people say it's similar. But so if you're familiar with Zinfandel, Primitivo is the Italian style of that wine. So if you like Zinfandel, you'll love Primitivo.
And we make it in a heavier big red style, not in a lighter, fruitier style. So, and again, that's an ageable wine that I think we're still drinking at home, the 2018, and it's just now really
Coming into its own.
coming in. Yeah.
Now you got me ready to taste some wines. But let's talk for a second about the location here. Do you do any kind of events or activities or things here that people like to come to?
Well, we try to keep up with all the standard things, like the eclipse last year. We had a big thing, big event for that. Coming up April 12th, we're doing a pig roast. We have a huge grill out back. And Margaret and I grew up in North Carolina. We're not from there, but we grew up there and went to college there. So I picked up this pulled pork style of grilling, and we cook a whole pig with the head and feet and skin on the grill. And, we used to call it a pig picking, where you could go and pick the meat off the bones yourself. And we do allow that after majority of the meat's been pulled. But we cook a whole pig on the fire pit for 24 hours, and it's a vinegar-based, that clear vinegar-based sauce with some red pepper, so it's spicy. And we also, whatever's left, we make into what we call pulled pork nachos, and they're available in the tasting room on a regular basis. And again, it's North Carolina style pulled pork. There's various other styles, but so people either really go crazy over that, or it's too spicy or too vinegary for them. But we sometimes have music. This site has not been as good for music as our original location. Just the traffic. I think people are on 290 they don't hang out as much as they used to at the more
For place.
Yeah, at the neighborhood location, they would come and hang out. So we had better crowds for music. But we still do have music occasionally. We have other food events. You have to check the Facebook or the webpage to see what's going on. We'll do brisket and sausage. We do sausage wraps. We have done breakfast tacos, wine pairing. You have to buy tickets, and you got to get here at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and we have like 5 different breakfast tacos, and we have them paired. We do Halloween candy tasting. We have done, and we are planning one for May, June, a Riedel glassware tasting. If anybody's familiar with that, the Riedel glasses are very unique, and they do have an impact on the flavors and aromas. And we have the Riedel representative come in, and you get they walk you through 4 different styles of glassware, 4 different wines, and we have small bite tastings. And you get to keep the glasses. Of course, there's a fee, but you get the tasting and the explanation, then you go home with your Riedel.
And you have your own Riedel glass.
Oh yeah, if you can make it home without breaking it.
Yeah, they are very tender,
fragile. Yes, yeah. So we typically in a given month, 2 weekends out of the month, we have something.
Okay.
Year round, and it's seasonal as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and as I'm looking at this beautiful tasting room, I love the whole front is like glass. For those of you that are watching, you can kind of see a little bit. We're right here at the front of the tasting room, and just all the beautiful live oaks and everything. Is such a beautiful property out here.
It is. We were very fortunate to get this property, and this was originally a home. So we're sitting now what was the front screened-in porch, and we glassed it in and made it part of the tasting room. But it is. My wife did all the design and decorations of it, and it came out very nice. We have a full kitchen. We have a pretty decent food menu now with 15 or 18 items. So don't hesitate to come if you want to come and get a bite to eat and a bottle of wine. The oak trees on this property, we have 5 or 6 different varieties. I can't name them all, but certainly the live oaks. We have post oaks. We have blackjack oaks that grow tall, and they're deciduous. So they're the ones out back are provide more shade in the summer, and they grow taller and straighter than the live oaks, which tend to be
All over the place.
yeah. So we have a variety of different trees here, and we have a pretty big open area. You can walk or picnic, seating outside. Bring a picnic, bring your dogs, bring your kids. We do not have a playground, but kids are certainly welcome, and pets are welcome.
And I love the little drive that you come in. So you come in this little drive, and it's really not far off of the road, but with all the trees and the landscaping here,
Yeah.
you feel like you're just out in the middle of the country.
It's very private. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's say a listener's going to come in to do a tasting. We talked about a few of the things you have going on there. So kids are fine. Pets, things like that are fine. When they come in to do a tasting of wines, or maybe even the beers, what does that look like? Do they typically do you have a provided flight of wines that they typically use, or do the customers get to pick, or what does a tasting look like?
So we have typically we have a menu that's easy to read, and you can also scan it with the QR code in advance or online, and then before you get here, you can look at it. But typically, we have 3 or 4 different flights or menu options, and they range. There is a price from $20 to $35.
Okay.
So we try to keep something at the lower end for the more novice. The basic wine menu is going to be 2 whites, a rosé, and 2 reds.
Okay.
And they're going to be lighter bodied reds, and the generic whites that people are going to recognize. Then you move into a more red flight that might have 1 white, a rosé, and 3 reds, and they're going to be more full bodied reds. And then we always have what we call the estate, or the big red menu. And sometimes there's 2 versions of that, because we do have quite a few wines.
Okay.
And so if you're just a red wine drinker, and you want to get a charcuterie tray and just drink red
Go
wine,
at it.
yeah. Typically, if you're sitting inside, we do like reservations, but we allow walk-ins up to like group sizes of 6. But we prefer reservation, even if it's just a couple. And then you can pick a table, and we come and pour the wines and give a description and explanation, where the grapes came from, what year it is, what might be unique about that particular batch of wine or that particular vintage.
Yeah.
If you bring food and you want to sit outside, if you bring your own food, typically we'll pour all 5 or 6 wines in that flight, and bring them out to you, so that you can sample them on your own, without waiting on somebody to come in and outside.
Okay.
If you do have a group and you want to, like a private tasting, we assign somebody and they'll pour for you. And inside, we handle groups. We've had groups as large as 20, 24. Certainly would like a reservation on those. We do have a private room in the back if you want to have a private event. If you're a small business and you want to have a team building exercise or something, again, we can provide food, and wine and beer, and any other, things that you may want. Everything is movable, so we can move tables around and push them together for different group sizes. And so we try to accommodate just about every situation in a tasting room.
Those reservations, can they do those on the website? Do they need to call?
You can go online and both. Okay. You can be at the front of the driveway and call and ask if there's tables available, come on in. Or online, you may be required for like a $10 deposit per person, especially like a group of 6.
Okay.
And then with that, if you do that a day or two in advance, when you come in, we'll have the tables already set and the glasses on the table and your name on that table. So it's a reserved place for you. And so then regardless of how busy that day is, you've got your table for that time slot.
You're set up.
Yeah.
What are your operating hours?
They change throughout the year.
I'm going to stump you here.
But typically it's 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And those certainly are summer hours. So that's what we're in right now. And right now we're doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
Sundays are noon to 6. In the winter time, we generally cut back to 5 o'clock because it's dark.
Yeah.
And we always frown on people driving home after drinking too much wine in the dark. And there's deer and all the other things that happen here.
Right.
So, we try to get people out of here while it's still daylight.
Okay. What would you say are some of your busy and slower times? What's the best time for someone to come visit?
Certainly the 11 to 1 o'clock time slot is our least busy. And again, it may be because of our location. People are zooming out closer to Fredericksburg and they're stopping here on the way back.
Okay.
3 to 5 is usually the busiest time. And again, we sort of think that's because people are on their way home and we may be their third or fourth stop. So, the earlier you come, the more attention you're going to get, and the more privacy, less noise. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about a wine club. So yeah, I'm assuming you do have a wine club.
We
Tell me a
do.
little bit about that.
There's no fee to join.
Okay.
And we do 4 shipments a year, once per quarter. And you can be 4, 6, or 12 bottle members. And then there's some options within there. You can be all red or all white or variety. So there's those options. And then you also have the option of picking up wine at the location, at the winery, or we'll ship it to you. We do ship nationwide. We have shipped a couple outside the country as well.
Oh, cool.
So we've had some wine club members come and go, or they got moved offshore and they still took their wines. So we'll figure out how to ship wherever we need to ship it to. The interesting thing about the being a wine club member is if you choose to come on the wine club pickup day, we do 2 seatings in our tasting room, and we have a set of 4 glasses set up for you when you come in, and we have what we call small bites that have been tasted and paired with the wines we're going to serve.
Curated.
Yes, and we do. I have to go through all those tastings with Monica and Margaret to get the right.
I bet that's a rough thing.
That's the rough thing that I have to do. So, but they're paired with the wines we're tasting, and of the 4 samples you get that day, 2 are usually wines that you're picking up as a club member, and then 2 are usually wines that we're targeting for the next shipment.
A sneak preview.
It's a sneak preview, and typically those are wines that are still in a barrel or in a tank, so they're not yet bottled. Everybody wants, can I buy these now? It's like, no, it's not even bottled yet. So you got to wait till a future club shipment. So there's a little tease there. But they get a sneak preview of what's coming, and and that's paired with a small snack as well. So and then they can pick up their wines afterwards, and we have a couple of seatings there. You have to make a reservation or sign up for a time slot on that pickup party as well. And that happens 4 times a year. It's the first Sunday of March, June, September, and December.
Okay. Well, let's say that somebody is interested in tasting your wine, but for whatever reason, they're having a hard time. Maybe they live far away or something, having a hard time getting here to the tasting room. Do you do any kind of distribution, or can they buy your wines on your website, or what does that look like?
All of our wines are available on the website.
Okay.
And certainly at any time they can call. We do remote tastings.
Okay.
If you're head of a homeowners association or a neighborhood wine club, we'll come to people's house and set up a menu, a food menu and a tasting. So we've done a number of real estate events, homeowners association, wine clubs. And so we'll go on the road and bring it to you. If you call and set up, we're actually doing a couple of Zoom style wine tastings. Was going to be in Mississippi, and the people were visiting and tasted our wines. And so we're now going through fixing the menu. And this woman has a wine club in her neighborhood with like 60 people. So we're going to set this up and do it remotely.
I love that. Westcave Cellars on the road.
Well, we're trying.
That's really cool.
Generally, to answer your question, we are not in distribution. We're probably in 10 or 15 restaurants, wine shops. We self-distribute. A couple of downtown Austin grocers, and some restaurants. Fredericksburg has one or two of the restaurants there have our wines. So you have to, and if you want our wines in some restaurant, ask them or tell them, why don't you have Westcave, and we'll figure out how to get it in there.
Oh, I like that. Ask for Texas wines.
Yeah.
I like that. And ask for Westcave Cellars wines. So we've talked a little bit about the property here and everything you've got going on and the changes you've made over the years with the move and adding in the brewery and things like that. Do you have plans for future growth? What might that look like?
I do not. To be very open up.
I want to stay steady.
It's like Margaret and I are in our later years, and we are in the winding down.
Okay.
Winding down, maybe. And so no plans to grow. Certainly we have enough wine capacity. We always wanted to be a 2,000 case winery. We are there. We have that capacity to grow beyond that if we want to. Maybe the next people would be interested in that. We certainly have space, land for vineyards and good sites for vineyards. And whether I initiate that and get it going or whether the next person does that, that remains to be seen though.
Yeah, whether that's in this chapter or the next.
That's right.
The potential's there.
And wineries tend to be generational things. And the wineries that survive 50, 80, 100 years generally have multiple generations that come in and take over the daughters or sons or grandchildren or whatever. We don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
So the next person is going to get a clean slate to come in and potentially do their thing completely different, or even change the name.
But carry on that legacy that you have created.
If that's what they choose to do. Yeah.
There are a lot of great places in Texas that people can go and drink great wines and visit, Westcave Cellars being one of those. So tell me, in your opinion, what do you think really sets Westcave Cellars and Brewery apart that people would say, man, I've got to get there. I want to go check that out.
Yeah. So, we do what we call wine, grape to bottle tours, or wine to bottle.
Okay.
And take them in the winery and show them how everything is processed, the equipment. We do barrel tastings, we do tank tastings, we can do multiple years, we can do the same year from different types of barrels, depending on the level of knowledge and the interest that the tour person provides. But the thing I always tell them is that we are, I'm going to say, one of the few truly authentic wineries in Central Texas. We grow grapes, we make wine, we process everything here. We're very proud to be 100% Texas. And we love our Texas clientele. We love the outside of Texas people as well. But being part of the Texas wine industry for so long and seeing how it's grown and the quality improvements that have been made, and we ourselves have gone through those quality of wine improvements, quality of grape growing improvements. It's been fun to be part of this industry and work with all the other wine growers and winemakers. Most of them are much younger than I am. So they're a lot more energetic and have great ideas. And so I've learned a lot. But being part of the Texas wine industry and having that authenticity of just, this is it. This is real Texas wine, real Texas grapes. Come out and visit, and it's all made here.
Real Texas wine, real Texas grapes. That definitely sums up the story of Westcave Cellars. And you'll definitely get to see that as they have weathered so many interesting changes throughout the Texas wine industry over the last couple of decades. And they're continuing to bring you amazing wine, amazing service, and amazing property there. Now, as always, don't forget to check out their website before you go visit them. It's www.westcavecellars.com. And when you go to visit their website, you can find all kinds of information, more about the winery itself. You'll see some information about what to expect when you come to visit. You can get that notes and information down before you go. You can find information about those tours and tastings that Allan talked about in the interview, as well as finding out information about their wine club, some of their current events and things that are coming up on the calendar, and of course their wine shop where you can go in and buy some of those great wines to taste before you even go. And as always, once I finished the interview, I was able to move on over to the tasting bar, sit down with Allan, and we got to taste through several of those great wines that they are serving there at Westcave Cellars. And they had so many good choices. Again, it made my choice difficult. I had to narrow down to one to pick. And so when all was said and done, I ended up choosing their 2021 Cabernet Franc. This is a Texas wine from the Texas High Plains, Cooper Valley Vineyard. And it was so rich and delicious. It had great notes, flavors of plum and cherry, but it also had some great spice notes and even some herbal notes on it that you might expect when you use Cabernet Franc. Very much my taste palate, the type of wines I like to drink. So I had to snatch up a bottle of this to bring home with me now for my wine library for this episode. And with that, my time is up. It's time for me to wander off to many other great Texas wine destinations so I can bring you all the scoop and great info on those places and the great Texas wine scene that we have here. But first, I thought I'd make a few small requests. If you are enjoying the show and the content that I'm bringing to you, all of these great places for you to go explore and drink great wine here in Texas, first off, go visit these great locations. Go show them some love that you've been hearing about and getting excited about them. Now go visit them and check them out and tell them that Texas Under Vine sent you when you go, and enjoy some of these great wines that you've been hearing about on the show. Secondly, though, share the podcast with all of your friends and your wine-loving friends. Hey, even those who drink beer would love to go to Westcave Cellars. So start sharing the show with your friends and those people who might also benefit from finding out about these great wine destinations we have here in Texas. And thirdly, if you wouldn't mind, leave me a rating and review wherever you get this podcast. It just takes a few seconds of your time. It's really easy to do. I'll let you pick the rating you would like, but leave me a sentence or two of a review, what you think of the show, and that really helps it to be seen by other people so that we can continue to share the great news about Texas wine and Texas wine destinations. Also, if you're watching this episode here on my YouTube channel, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And if you would, go down below the video and leave a comment down there. Tell me what you think about Westcave Cellars if you've been there before. What's your favorite thing about Westcave Cellars? But if you haven't been, you decided to by the interview today, then leave a comment telling me what you're most looking forward to seeing when you go. And with that, my time is up. So don't forget, subscribe to the podcast and follow my socials to be notified anytime a brand new episode is released. And until then, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely
and most especially, drink responsibly.
Howdy, Vine Trippers. Before we go, I wanted to direct you to my website, www.texasundervine, because there you're going to find a whole host of things. Besides access to the audio versions and the video versions of the podcast, you can also get those on any podcast provider and then the video on YouTube. But there you're going to find a couple of things. Did you know that I actually sold some Texas Under Vine merchandise? I only have a handful of items available, about 5 different things, but they are up on my store. So if you go to the website, texasundervine.com, and go to the top, you're going to see a link for the merchandise store. And there you can get your own Texas Under Vine swag to proudly show all of your friends that you support the Texas wine industry, and you can get them started on and hooked on the podcast as well, so they can go visit even more of these great wine destinations. But in addition to the store, I also have a Patreon for my subscribers, people that support this show. I do this all out of a work of love from my heart. I do not make any money on this podcast. I'm actually in the red because I support it all out of my own pocket as a teacher. And it's mainly because I love wine and I love the Texas wine industry. So if you're willing to help me do that and you'd like to see more of these great episodes, hear more from these amazing winemakers, learn more about some fun destinations for you to go and visit on your own, I would appreciate if you would be willing to subscribe to my Patreon. So at the top of my website page, again, you'll find a Become a Patron link. And there you can get all the information about becoming a subscriber to the podcast here as a Patreon subscriber. It only costs a few dollars a month if you're willing to commit that. And there are various levels that you can commit to that each give you behind the scenes benefits that you don't get. And I do have some new things in the pipeline coming down soon. So you want to get on that sooner than later. But right now you can get things like behind the scenes photos at different wineries. You can get things like at one level, you'll get a video walkthrough of the winery. So for every episode, I will post a video walkthrough of me taking you through the winery itself so you can see what it's like before you go. And then at one level, you can even find out before everyone else where I'm headed the next week on the show as it comes out. So you'll know before everyone else. You get a sneak peek. So there's just different levels of benefits and they all cost a different amount. And as you subscribe, you become the heart of this podcast. You really are what helps me succeed. You are my community and my people. And thank you so much for those that do subscribe. So if you're interested in joining Patreon, check the Become a Patron link at the top of the website. So again, the website is www.texasundervine.com. You can also go to all of my socials. I'm at Texas Under Vine on almost all the social accounts. And check it out and consider sponsoring the podcast and maybe even buying some of that really cool swag on the merchandise store. Happy trails and bottoms up, Vine Trippers.